Welcome to Now Let's Talk, the podcast with Vanessa Corwin and Kathleen Kahn, where we speak with our guests about the joys and challenges of life in today's world. Hello, I'm Vanessa Corwin.
And I'm Kathleen Kahn.
Many advocacy organizations are pushing back against the attempts of the Trump administration to dismantle our democracy. One of them is the Beacon for Democracy. Their members gather every Thursday night in a public place to raise their voices. Actually, that's how I found them. With us today is Lynn Paltrow, activist and member of the Beacon's leadership team, to talk about this unique organization. Welcome, Lynn. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
So, Lynn, let's start out with your background. Tell us a little bit about that and why you got involved with the Beacon, and was there a specific issue or experience that motivated you to join?
I am currently a new grandmother. Gives you some idea of the age range. I am a gay parent of twins. It's my daughter who had the first grandchild, and I'm having such a good time. I spent my work life as a civil rights, women's rights, reproductive justice attorney. I spent many years litigating to defend the right to choose abortion, and then started a new organization called National Advocates for Pregnant Women to focus on the ways in which pregnancy was being used to deny people their civil and human rights. And some of that work involved defending people who had abortions, but increasingly the anti-abortion argument that fertilized eggs, embryos, and fetuses are persons was being used to justify arrests in relationship to pregnancy. So if a woman experienced a stillbirth, she might be arrested for murder. And I sort of, not quite intentionally, ended up becoming both a constitutional lawyer and a criminal defense lawyer. About 2 years ago, I stepped down from running that organization. I ran it for 21 years. It was time to step down, and I'm very proud. The organization took on the name while I was still there, Pregnancy Justice, and they are continuing doing amazing work at the intersection of pregnancy, abortion, reproductive justice, and drug policy reform, since so many of the cases involve allegations that play on both people's prejudices about the role of women and also the role of drugs. So I stepped down. I started working on a book, and I was doing volunteer work for the Harris campaign. And about 3 weeks before the election, I knew we weren't going to win.
Yeah.
And I took very seriously Project 2025. It told us the degree of authoritarianism and rights denial and cruelty that was coming. In another age, my ancestors in Russia and Poland would have said, good time to get out.
That's right.
But I didn't have any place to go, and I wasn't sure what to do, and I felt my entire self in what I called a metaphorical crouch, waiting for the next MAGA anvil to fall. But then on January 20th, 2025, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum called a Zoom meeting. She said, "We know what's coming. I've already organized actions that we took during the first Trump administration. We need to do something and be ready in this administration to respond to the level of cruelty and authoritarianism that we're going to see." And out of that came the Beacon for Democracy. And I should step back, I looked at what I had worked on and realized in all the years I was doing reproductive health rights and justice work, what I was really doing was trying to knock at democracy's door and say, let everyone in, including the people who can get pregnant, including the people who are pregnant. And suddenly, it wasn't clear that we even had a democracy door to go through, or would have that. And I wanted to think about, what can I do for the big picture democracy door? And the messages that I began to hear from Rabbi Kleinbaum, she said, if you're here and you're alive at this time, there's a reason. And very important for me, no one can do everything, everyone can do something. And we began to work together to create the Beacon for Democracy, an organization that offers a positive vision of what we want, that speaks out against the cruelty of what we're seeing, and eventually started Shine the Light as a major part of our activities. Every Thursday we stand out, and I will talk more about that. But it has been an amazing journey, and I will say, in preparing for this podcast, I don't feel like I'm in a crouch anymore.
What is exactly Beacon for Democracy? What is its mission?
Well, the Beacon for Democracy brings together people of all faiths and secular backgrounds who feel called or who can be invited to stand with those facing injustice. What we do is create visible acts of solidarity and compassion and offer messages and images that powerfully contrast with the hate, the fear, and the despair amplified every day in the news cycle. That involves being present, being out, holding space for public expressions of outrage and solidarity. We do educational programs recognizing that we can find strength and courage in learning about history, philosophy, and multi-faith traditions that help people cope in the kind of times of adversity we're in now. Although in the history of the United States, for many people, it has always been this kind of time of adversity. And it's only for some of us, particularly white folks with privilege, that we're reminded that the kind of cruelty, the kind of exclusion, the kind of dishonesty that is being perpetuated right in front of us has always been here for some groups of people. The organization is teaching that we are not alone and our experiences are not unique, that people have survived and found meaning in every age and every set of circumstances. And we are providing each other with strength and comfort and confidence to act and learn from history. I know I was privileged to teach a series of classes on reproductive rights as resistance. We've heard from Dennis Dalton, somebody who studied Gandhi and nonviolent civil disobedience in incredible depth, and shared with us what that looks like, because our commitment is to showing up in public with in a way that is nonviolent, that is full of compassion, that believes we can bring our opponents in rather than hate them or malign them. And we show up whenever we can, wherever we are. So, for example, when Brad Lander was arrested at the immigration courthouse in New York City by ICE officials, thrown up against a wall, so those of us who are in the Beacon, who live in Manhattan, were able to get down to Foley Square almost immediately to begin the protests that lasted and built and grew over the day, calling for his release. And then, when he was released, he gave such a beautiful speech, making so clear that he was out because of his race, his gender, his privilege, but that we had to keep showing up for all the people who don't have that privilege.
I was going to ask you, but you've answered it. How different is your organization versus other advocacy organizations?
Well, I hope so, but I think that's a good question. I mean, there are lots of ways for people to contribute at this moment in history. And some people are using, their skills very directly. They're bringing the cases to defend, for example, birthright citizenship. They are challenging.
Yes.
Yes. Today, the Supreme Court upheld it, but
yes, they did.
We upheld birthright citizenship, which is something we've had for more than 100 years. It's in our Constitution. The signs we hold at our weekly Shine the Light demonstrations. Among them say, we believe in our Constitution, we defend our Constitution. But partly what the beacon provides, and it's not the only one, but it's one that really works for many people. It provides everyday people. You don't have to have a law degree. You don't have to, be the head of a union. You can be an everyday person and show up as part of the beacon and the Shine the Light weekly actions to show each other, our neighbors, our communities, that we will not sit silently and watch what's happening, and that we will be part of the public, visible resistance, holding space for all of the other people, including eventually the 3.5% of the population we need on a regular basis to bring down this authoritarian regime.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, another, I think, really unique thing about this organization is the Monday Zoom meeting, which I had the privilege of attending, which is a fantastic space where these attendees, they're sharing wonderful positive messages. They sing, they tell jokes, they do all sorts of things. You've got updates from people all over the country. So talk about that a little bit, and like, how did this very unique kind of meeting come about?
The weekly meetings, which are Monday at noon, provide a place for people to gather, to talk to each other. It typically starts with music. We have a sort of a music committee that plans it, and so many of us are learning resistance songs that we did not know before. And singing is part of healing. Singing is part of bringing people joy and comfort, two things that are absolutely essential to the persistent resistance that we need. People talk about what's happened during the week. We are now bringing people who are leading other local organizations in other parts of the country to spend a few minutes talking to us. Even though Beacon and Shine the Light groups exist across New York City, in rural parts of New York State, in other parts of the country, people are standing weekly in a weekly ritual of resistance and community building every week. And they talk about what the experience was. We ask people to take pictures and send them to the Beacon. We then show them during this 1 hour meeting, and people tell what it was like for them. Was there opposition? Were they ever afraid? What worked? What didn't work? Some people count the number of car honks they get for the signs that they're holding. Honk if you're for democracy. Did people come in costume? Did people sing? Did they experience joy? Was there somebody who was difficult, and how do you handle that? I personally have learned that, to me, I'm doing it in Greenwich Village, which it isn't always that friendly. People are in a hurry. I think there's a lot of people who are benefiting in the village from this administration, so it isn't always kind. Mostly it is. But what I've learned is when somebody says something particularly nasty, I just say to them or myself, it's okay, I'm going to pray for you. And it makes me feel centered and reminds myself that they are not the majority. They are not going to change the commitment to an inclusive, caring democracy that I want to see. We learn from each other's signs, to honk if you're not in the Epstein files, or we recognize that ridicule
That's funny.
is a very important part of taking down authoritarian regimes. That people have signs that say grift costs, grift is a tax on you, corruption is a tax on you. People are creating original signs and repeating the good ones that come up, like make algae great again. And And it always ends with a wonderful a retired professor, I think, of English, Ron Gross, who does a fake news piece. Clever.
Yes, they told me about that.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was, I may not have this right, but it's close, in which he talked about how Hegseth kept referring to it by mistake as the Straits of Vermouth.
But I bet he did it.
Love it. Love it. That sounds very Hegseth-like to me.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we can still at a point chuckle about what's going on. You have to do that in order to keep your sanity, because it's just so every day something else.
Speaking of all these demonstrations and signs and everything, I love the creativity. And in my experience, participating in the Thursday night activity is just, so many really great creative signs. Now, speaking of demonstrating with the beacon, this is in my experience. Okay, this is just my experience. The participants seem to be predominantly older people, female, and white. Now, why do you think that is? And B, what is the organization doing to attract more younger people and a more diverse group, including LGBTQ folks?
Well, I will say that being an older white woman who is also a lesbian, I don't think they're having any trouble attracting LGBTQ folks. We definitely seek to embrace everyone we can. And the more people who show up at any particular location for Shine the Light, the better it is, or the more exciting it is, the better the opportunity to meet a new neighbor, to build a sense of community. Because part of what it's about is having an action in your neighborhood, that not everybody can get to the big marches. And there's a lot of time between the big marches. So how do we maintain our participation, our resistance, and show that we are continuing to resist in between those big marches? And we're bridged between those marches. There is also a kind of trap, I think, in looking around you and focusing primarily on who's not there. We have to celebrate the people who are there. And we also have to listen to the people who aren't. People who have little kids, who are trying to get them to bed, who are exhausted, who don't have traditions or cultures of demonstrating, of being out on the streets. And that's part of why we're there. There's something called social proof. People like to do what people like them do. And the communications expert, Anat Shankar-Osario, says, people saw people like them wearing red MAGA hats, so they started to wear them. Well, we have to be out there to show people like us that they can, when they're ready, when their time permits, be out there with us or in some equivalent. Every person who goes by and says thank you, every person who goes by and gives a thumbs up, every car that goes by and honks is participating. And folks have to do what they feel comfortable and ready to do. Many of us, many folks, both because of COVID and other reasons, were not marching after George Floyd was so brutally murdered. And there are an awful lot of colleagues and friends who feel like we've been marching. And we are at the greatest risk of being arrested, of being beaten, of being harassed. So I think it's a mistake to kind of think, oh, it's not good because we don't have everybody here yet. When it's time for everybody to be there, I am very confident that they will be. And
well, it sounds to me like you're educating them as you, without them even knowing it, you open their eyes to something that maybe they don't see.
Well, I think we're certainly modeling resistance for a lot of people. I was visiting my daughter who in Boston after my grandbaby was born, and I was there on a Thursday, and I wasn't able to find a local beacon group but I was committed to shining a light every Thursday. So I made a sign and just went out on a street corner. And one week, it was the week that Nicole Renee Good was murdered, and I made a sign that said she should be alive, and I went out by myself. I mean, we encourage people to do it with one other person, but you don't have to. I went out that way. I'm always honestly a little teeny bit nervous. Sure. And the first thing that happened was a young woman came up toward me crying. She had seen the video of the murder, and she said, I am so glad you are here and I can have somebody to talk to.
Wow.
And another week when I was there on my own, two women converged. They hadn't come together, and they said, oh, you're so brave to be doing this. And I looked at them, and there had been somebody across the street yelling at something at me. I said I would pray for. But these two women converged, and they both said, oh, you're so brave for doing this. I said, I'm not really very brave. I get to have a conversation with you two. You're so nice. What a pleasure to get to meet you. So I find it to be in a city where, you know, you're not supposed to make eye contact. You're not supposed to necessarily even know your neighbors. I have found it incredibly powerful, empowering, and joyous. So, and in terms of teaching, frankly, I'm the one who's learned. I've learned so much from my colleagues in the reproductive justice movement, and the reproductive justice movement is one that was created by Black women that went beyond health and rights to recognize that you have to have not only a right to end a pregnancy, but to have a baby in a safe community. I've learned from them about demonstrating and building coalition and hugging. And so for people who have never experienced a democracy that worked for them, we are still fighting for something we've never had, an inclusive democracy. Democracy doesn't mean the same thing to everyone, even people who we have a lot of agreement with, because in their experience, they're still experiencing, and we're putting back into place Jim Crow and all of that discrimination. So seeing a sign that says, you know, I'm for democracy may not be the thing that speaks to them. And I would say it's a mistake to think that they're not also contributing to the resistance, just not necessarily in exactly the same way I am.
Right.
So,
and isn't it true that democracy is a big experiment?
Yes, you know, 250 years, will it last? Can we make it last? And I really hope we can. But it has to be, and again, we've never had a fully inclusive democracy. That is still a dream. And so at the same time we're trying to preserve what we have to articulate and hold on to the vision and fight for one that includes everyone.
So what would you say to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by all the news about what's going on in the Trump administration?
and I'm one of them.
Well, I know that, first of all, it's okay to turn the news off sometimes.
I know.
I personally still find it hard to resist, but sometimes I don't read every drop of the news.
Okay.
And I find that, I haven't really explained Shine the Light, so I should probably do that. The Beacon for Democracy was formed, and one of our signature actions became something called Shine the Light. And the idea is, as the darkness feels like it's descending, and it is, through the authoritarian regime of bullies for the billionaires, we can be a ray of light for people, reminding them what positive values we have, reminding them of our dedication to what we hope to achieve someday, a truly inclusive democracy that lifts us all, it doesn't just privilege some. And authoritarians want us to sit home, be depressed, be isolated, and give up.
And give up, really.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm very clear. Okay, so Shine the Light says, hey, let's do something that, number one, gets us to know our neighbors. And I have to say, for years, I was litigating cases all over the United States and going to conferences nationally and internationally. I really didn't know my neighbors. So this idea of doing it in your neighborhood was very exciting, and I started with somebody in my building who happened to also run into the beacon, and we just went out on the street and held a big sign about all of the people working for the government that were being fired, the people who made our lives better by doing the work that the government should do, because we deserve a government that functions and ensures that we have nice things like health care and sewage systems that work and streets that get plowed, all the things that our government should be doing for us. And meet on a street corner, invite other people to stand there just for a half hour. That's all, a half hour once a week on a Thursday, so it doesn't interfere with any religious group that we know of, their usual ritual. And make a sign, bring a sign that you made. And I have friends, I've met people over the years who are art therapists, and I didn't really understand what they were doing. But when you make your own sign, there is something a little bit empowering about it, a little bit that distracts you from the despair that you're feeling from listening to the news, and bring it with you and stand together. The result of this is I actually know neighbors I didn't know before. When I go to the grocery store, I see Lisa, and I'm like, wait a minute, we stand together. How are you? It makes just my everyday existence in my neighborhood that much warmer, that much better.
That's great. I mean, if you put it out there, they will come. And then also, it has become very clear that the more we resist, I mean, even with like the lawsuits and those judges who are saying, sorry, Trumpy baby, this is illegal, you cannot do this. There's more victories in that area than successes for them. So that speaks to just keep up the good work.
We keep trying to, we are overwhelmed sometimes, but there is real joy in joining the resistance and being part of it. And we have to celebrate all of our victories. And, as humans, we tend to focus on the things that hurt our feelings more than the things that make us feel good usually. But we have to keep in mind that Orban in Hungary was defeated. And he was defeated by people pointing out the cost to them of the corruption that Orban's government was carrying out. And Trump's administration, the extraordinary corruption, it comes out of our pocket when he has a no-bid contract to screw up the reflecting pool. When he brings in bulldozers to tear down our national monuments.
Yep.
The cost of building pyramids to his ego is coming out of our
pockets,
Social Security, our pockets. And we have to find ways of bringing that to people's attention. Grift costs.
Indeed.
Yeah, especially when he tells people, this is not coming out of your pocket. I mean, he lies to your face. And it takes time for people to realize that he's not telling the truth. It is coming out of our money.
And as horrible as what happened in Minnesota and in Minneapolis, Minnesota was, look at what the people did.
God.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Exactly.
We haven't, these are the things about terrible times. We don't want terrible times, but they do offer us the opportunity to prove our humanity, to act on our compassion, to act on our courage. The people who are protesting at Delaney Hall in New Jersey.
Yes.
This is, every bit of that matters. And it isn't, I have no illusions. I don't think standing outside for a half hour on Thursdays is what is going to bring down this administration. And I will say, I have to work on my patience for people who say, well, what's the point of that? It didn't change anything. But it kept me from changing. it kept me from becoming somebody who is so depressed I can't get out of bed, or so fearful I can't get out of bed. It's changed me in the sense that I have developed friendships and community connections that I never had before that might be life-saving if things even get worse. So it's not changing it in the sense of we can, through these small actions, stop the administration right now, but we are building.
Yes.
We are sustaining the resistance that has to exist when this administration falls. And as Rabbi Kleinbaum says, the Pharaoh always loses. It may not be tomorrow, but it will be eventually. And we have to be here together with a positive vision for when that time happens.
Absolutely.
So, Kathleen, am I going to see you on a Thursday?
Well, I was going to ask at the beginning, I thought, because Vanessa was uptown and that was her district, I was under the impression that the Beacon was only that district.
Oh, no.
But you're all over the place. So how do you let people know if you know they're in the East Village, the West Village?
Yeah. I mean, how can they want to find out more about the Beacon and find a group in their area?
We have a website, beaconfordemocracy.org. The Beacon for Democracy, it has an Instagram. We're on Facebook. People can join the Beacon for Democracy by going to the website. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't commit you to anything, but it means you'll get the information weekly about the Monday Zooms, the link for that, and updates about events that are happening. Rabbi Kleinbaum was just on Brian Lehrer on WNYC.
Really?
She did a brilliant job. I wrote a piece in Ms. that you can access.
Yes.
There's been coverage of this. The rabbi's written things. We also show up at the major marches with our banners and with little flyers that explain who we are and where we stand. But you asked about where are there groups. If you go to the website and go to Shine the Light, there's what do we call it? A shine finder. You can shine where other people already are, but you don't have to. It is going out. You can go out on the corner as I did in Boston with your sign. And, I understand a feeling of trepidation. I mean, I have both a feeling of trepidation and also I must look pretty foolish. People probably think I look kind of nutty. But I have never not had a wonderful experience. The day that Trump started his illegal, costly, terrible war in Iran, I was at a conference at Smith College, but it was Thursday and I was going to go out with my sign. It was kind of rainy, it was a little bit cold, and I made a sign while I was listening to people speak at this conference, and I think said, honk if you oppose Trump's war, and the S on Trump was a dollar sign. And I just went out to a street by myself where there was traffic and held up my sign. And a car pulled up across the street with an older gentleman, white hair, white man, and I say older, but probably my age. And he looked at me for a while, and then he got out of his car, he crossed traffic, and stood next to me for the entire half hour. He said,
"It's amazing.
I am a Vietnam War veteran.
Uh-huh.
That was a war approved by Congress.
Right.
I won a purple, what are they called? Purple
heart.
Purple heart.
Purple
He
heart.
had an insignia on the shirt, on the jacket he was wearing that day. And he stood there stolid with me for the entire half hour.
That's
Wow.
So I think it's worth doing just for those kinds of experiences.
That's amazing.
I'm not in a crouch because I'm going to go out every Thursday. And I'm sort of the person organizing my locally as well as the Beacon overall. And it creates a focus. One of the things that helped me out of my despair was being reminded that no one can do everything and everyone can do something. And I like that I'm doing it with folks who recognize that joy is part of the resistance.
Yes.
Singing is part of the resistance. Kindness is part of the resistance. And learning new skills. The other thing is that we do education. We have education programs that I've mentioned. We find strength and courage in learning from history and philosophy. When I did my 2 classes on reproductive rights and resistance, one of the things people don't realize is, as horrifying as the Dobbs decision was, overturning Roe v. Wade, abortion rates are higher than they were. And this should actually not be surprising. Every authoritarian regime focuses on women, on their reproduction. They also tend to focus on LGBTQ folks. But their attempts, Ceausescu in Romania, when he was in power, a communist dictator, was so concerned about the birth rate that they totally outlawed abortion, that women came to work and had to pee in a cup to be tested to see
wow.
My God.
to keep that level of
Wow.
control over them. He did not last long. That did not last long. And here in the United States, women, people with the capacity for pregnancy, will always find a way to do what's best for their health, their families,
Absolutely.
their communities. This is not something the authoritarians can control. And we need to celebrate that the resistance that I'm currently doing, which with the Beacon for Democracy, with Shine the Light every week, people who are providing abortion care are doing resistance work.
Yes.
People are making sure that the safe medications for abortion, mifepristone and misoprostol, can get to people. They are doing resistance work. Resistance work is happening all around us. And when Kathleen, when you start to go to despair, maybe start making that list of, wait a minute, the work that I'm seeing is resistance.
Yes, exactly.
Indeed. And, I think even just the fact, like, we're all sitting here talking about this in this podcast, we look at that as a form of resistance in and of itself.
Well, we have exercising our right to free speech.
Absolutely.
Our right to association. And at least for now, the right to love, which has been somewhat protected by our Constitution. I think it'll be under attack, but that will be the power and the force that will ultimately win it back. And
we will win it back. And, I guess the idea, as you have so eloquently said, is just to keep on showing up, be present.
And I hope that this podcast shines a light when people are listening to this, waking them up and seeing what can be done.
Yes, and so I do want to, just to answer your question, the beaconfordemocracy.org, Shine the Light, there is, as I said, a Shine Finder. So you can find people who are doing it. That if we want people to be with us, to see the warmth and the joy of it, we have to bring them in, not by yelling at them, not by saying, why aren't you here?
I know.
And not here. It's like, come be with me. This is fun. And we can go have tea or coffee afterwards. We can paint our signs together beforehand. We can sing together and see, maybe it turns out we're good at harmony.
This has been wonderful. We thank you so much.
Oh, this has been amazing and inspirational.
We look forward to seeing you. Send in your pictures to beaconlightforce@gmail.com.
Oh, yes, my group did. They were up. It was up there,
I saw you, but Kathleen, I'm going to be looking for yours.
Well, I know you are.
Thank you both.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you, so please visit our website at nowletstalkthepodcast.com and send us your comments and questions. We'll see you next time.